and that's the point of today. My two favorite Fred stories, if you've not read me on Facebook going over them, because they're fun to tell, and they bring a smile to my face every time. In the many, many years that I've known Fred, I've only seen him blush twice. The first was when we met, which was at Arizona State. And we were in a dorm that had a little railing made out of cement that was in front of our two rooms. And we had this kind of tense, quiet friendship. How are you doing? Hey. All right. I was like, you know, and I'm a very fun, friendly guy, so I can get to people and break them down very quickly. But Fred was, you know, very centered, very still, very quiet, did not let, you know, a lot penetrate in the beginning. He took his time to get to know people. He was cautious. And the more cautious he was, and for some other reason, you know, which I came to discover in time because we were meant to be friends, the friends that we were, you know, I found it fascinating, and I always noticed him when people were around. I'd always say hi. I'd always, like, you know, ask a couple of questions and get one-word answers. And so one day we're standing out in front of this balcony, which was kind of blocked from the waist down. And, you know, we had, like, small three-word conversations. And this is a typical moment with Fred, and he was just standing there looking at, and I was just standing there looking at. And this group of girls comes in. They're on a sorority tour. And there's at least 100 girls wearing all their sorority gear, and they're coming down. They're on some big tour. And I just followed my impulse, and I just screamed out at the top of my lungs, "Hey, where are the white women at?" And I ducked down behind the banister. And Fred had no time to react to that at all, and he just stood there, and his eyes went wide, and he got very flushed, and he just looked down at me, and he said, "I'm going to kill you." And that was the moment that broke the ice between us. And you know, that was it. We were brothers ever since, and I took great pleasure in making him laugh and pushing him out of his comfort zone, and being an idiot, which would always give him permission to open up and share. The second time I saw him blush, and this is one of my very favorite stories, is I was out here in Las Vegas for some work. He picked me up at the airport. We got as much time together as we could, as was always our way, because we lived in different cities for most of our friendship. And on the way back to the airport, he dropped me off. This was the old Palm Pilot days where it didn't adjust times for you if you changed time zones. So I go in, I check in for my flight, and the woman goes, "Yeah, you're 3 hours late." And I said, you know, couldn't believe it. And I said, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" And she said, "Well, there'll be another flight later, 4 hours out, whatever it was." And I said, all right, thank you. I texted Fred. I said, "You know, I missed my flight. I was on the wrong time zone." He says, "I'm coming back." I said, "No, don't worry about it." He says, "I'm coming back." So we circled back around the airport, however far away he was. He picked me up, and we decided to kill some time. We're going to go to the movies, whatever. So we go to this mall, and there's a Container Store, which is my favorite store on earth. And I said to him, "Have you ever been to a Container Store?" And he said, "No." I said, "You got to go. I mean, it's incredible. There's a container for everything." And I'm a little OCD, so I love that place. You could put containers in containers. So we go to the Container Store, and we're walking, you know, around looking. I'm excited by everything, and Fred's, you know, just sort of taking it all in. And we walk past this beautiful woman, and as we walk past, she smiles at, you know, Fred. And I thought, wow, that was a really nice moment. And as we crossed away from her, I said, "You should talk to her." And he goes, No. I said, "Fred, you should talk to her." I was like, that was a really warm smile. And he's like, no, I couldn't. I said, "You got to." And he says, no, I couldn't. Why? She doesn't want to be approached. I said, okay. We walked, and as we walked, I drifted away from him. And I went back around, and I tracked this woman down in the store. And I walk up to her, and I said, "Let me ask you a question." I said, "Would you be open to meeting the greatest guy on earth?" I'm talking heart of gold, fantastic mind, the whole package, like a really, truly special human being. And I was so impressed, and she sit there, and she sort of looked me up and down for a second, and she was sort of thinking, and she said, "Yes." I said, "That's fantastic." I said, "Thank you for being open to that idea." And she said, "Okay, tell me a little bit more about him." And so I'm standing there, selling, which I'm good at. And Fred was very easy for me to sell. This is my best friend. And I had nothing but great things to say. And so she got more and more interested in the conversation. And she said, well, he sounds like a great person. I would be open to meeting him. And I said, I'll be back. And so I go back and I find Fred, and there was a display thing with the basketball in it, and he had the basketball, and so I said, come here, I want to show you something. And he says, what is it? I said, you got to see this. And he says, okay. So we walk, we come around the corner. As we come around the corner into the aisle, she's standing there. And he got that exact same look in his face again, and he got bright red again, and I could hear him saying, I'm going to kill you. But I introduced he and Wendy, and I sat there and I primed the conversation a little bit with what she did and what he did, and I kind of waited until they started to get on a roll and sort of quietly snuck off. And they chatted for a while, and he eventually, left and came back over. I'm smiling. He says, I'm going to kill you. And I said, did you get her number? And he said, yeah, we made plans. And my heart just lifted out through my chest. I knew in that moment that this was something that was going to be very special. I mean, I don't know how I knew. Between missing the flight, between the smile, the warmth, that as they walked past each other as strangers, I just knew. So I was very grateful to Wendy's openness, and to know that my best friend was going to be with someone that could see his specialness as easily and as quickly as she did. Because Fred was quiet and unassuming, and you could walk past him without realizing that there was a giant of a personality that was there under all of that. And he made you work hard to get to know him. And it was always worth it. So those are two of my favorite Fred stories, and I just wanted to share those with you. And now I'd like to bring that lovely lady up who put all of this together and has loved Fred all this time since, his partner, Wendy.
Thank you. That was a very random day. 'Cause I was just, the Container Store had just opened. Can you hear me? Yeah. The Container Store just opened, and I was just kind of sad and lonely that day, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go check out the Container Store. and there I was, and it's random, but it was meant to be. I appreciate everybody coming today, and I was looking forward to having all the love in one room. I'm gonna try to keep it together, but this video is a labor of love. I'm a teacher, I'm off for the summer. I was working on this day and night for a while, and I cried through it for days, but it was very cathartic, and it really helped me move through. I wanted to really tell a story, Fred's story, and I tried to do the best I could. I've never made a movie before. I've never used this software. I truly had to channel Fred. I did. I had to, Fred always, I'd ask him questions, and he'd always just say, Google it. So that's what I did. I did a lot of YouTube tutorials and whatever, but anyways. So I hope you enjoy. But I do have tissues on every table, so make sure you have those handy. Not that I was trying to make you cry, but you might. Thank you.
If you can maybe hit the lights in the room, that would be good. I think
He was worried it wasn't the right one.
Better. Yeah, no, it's all.
Okay.
I just wanted to take a moment to let Wendy know and everyone else know how much Fred is loved and missed, and this is harder than I thought it was going to be, but you know that you'll always live you'll always live on in everyone else's hearts. Very well loved, and I just keep thinking that we're still going to have that conversation that we didn't get to finish.
Yeah. I already miss you so much, Uncle Fred, and I wish I would have seen you more, and it's just been so long, and now I'm really sad that I won't get to see you again.
We love you, and you know that you're watching over our family, and that you're watching over the people that we love's family, so we love you, Fred, and
We love you, Fred.
we miss you so much.
Yeah.
You always think about the fans. We were underground, loaded merch in that 12-passenger van. In a small club in Minnesota, and the snow outside of First Ave. I just wanted my name in the star. Now look at where we at, still growing up. Still growing up. I would lay in my bed and dream about what I've become. Couldn't wait to get older. Couldn't wait to be some. Now that I'm here, wishing I was still young. Those good old days.
I wish somebody would've told me, babe, that someday these would be the good old days. All the love you won't forget, and all these reckless nights you won't regret. 'Cause someday soon your whole life's gonna change. You'll miss the magic of the good old days.
Wish I didn't think I had the answers. Wish I didn't drink all of that blast first. Wish I made it to homecoming. Got up the courage to ask her. Wish I would've gotten out of my shell. Wish I put the bottle back on that shelf. Wish I wouldn't have worried about what other people thought and felt comfortable with myself. Rooftop open. And the stars above. Home with flows and sneaking out.
Hey guys, my name is Joe Rea. I am videoing you from Norfolk, Virginia. I first met Fred when I lived on Long Island. Fred and Paul were best friends. They met in middle school, and I was Paulie's little brother. So if you can only imagine, I was the one always tagging along. I was always the one, for the most part, trying to fit in, maybe feeling left out. But having Fred around, he always included me, did his best to include me, whether he was making me a mixtape or letting me hang out with them when I was a freshman, giving me rides to gymnastics or giving me rides to school in general, just including me. Fred was really dear to our family. He was like a son to my parents, a grandson to my grandmother, a brother to me, a brother to my brother Paul, and I called Fred a gentle giant. He was tall, he was athletic, he was caring, he was soft-spoken, he was loving, and I just really wanted to be part of this today, and I was grateful that Wendy let me make a video so I can share it with you guys. Most of you already know this of Fred, everyone actually knows this of Fred, but I wanted to just share that Fred impacted my life growing up as a young kid in middle school and high school, and even to this day as an adult, Fred is still impacting my life. And he'll be deeply missed, but I am forever changed as a person by the simple fact that I knew Fred. I wish you all well. Thank you.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things we've been through. Then I'll be standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How can we not talk about feeling with feelings all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
First you both go out your way and the vibe is feeling strong. It was small, turn to a friendship turn to a bond, and that bond will never be broken, the love will never get lost. And when brotherhood come first, then the line will never be crossed. Established it on our own when that line had to be drawn, and that line is what we reach, so remember me when I'm gone. How can we not talk about feeling with feelings all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for an apostrophe. I'm just a symbol to remind you that there's more to see. I'm just a product of the system of catastrophe. And yet a masterpiece, and yet I'm half deceased. And when I am deceased, at least I go down to the grave and die happily. And leave the body of my soul to be a part of me. I'll do what it takes, whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. 'Cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes. You take me to the top, I'm ready for whatever it takes. 'Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I'll do what it takes. Hold on to me as we go, as we roll down this unfamiliar road. And although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone. 'Cause I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble it might drag you down. You get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone. 'Cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
Hands, put your empty hands in mine. And scars, show me all the scars you hide. And hey, if your wings are broken, please take mine so yours can open too. 'Cause I'm gonna stand by you. Now, tears make a lot of scopes in your eyes. And hurt, I know you're hurting, but so am I. And love, if your wings are broken, I want mine so yours can open too. 'Cause I'm gonna stand by you, even if we're breaking down. We can find a way to break through, even if we can't find heaven. I'll walk through hell with you. 'Cause I'm gonna stand by you, even if we can't find heaven. I'm gonna stand by you.
what's up? This is Charlie Wilson, aka Uncle Charlie. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2008. Still fighting. This is great. I don't win or not a loser. I'm gonna win the battle. That's right. I'm cancer.
My name's Bernadette, and I've been stage 1 triple negative breast cancer. My name's Amber, and I'm in stage 4 lung cancer.
I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in September 2013.
I'm here now, 37 years old. I was diagnosed with pulmonary brain tumor 3 years ago.
Hi, this is Kathy
I just want you to know that
If I had a dollar for every time they counted me out, and my back was up against the wall, I could have died, but I came out fighting, fighting. Could have died, but I came out fighting. Could have died, but I came out fighting. Could have died, but I came out fighting. Yeah, with a breast full of lungs, man, she ain't no punch. She going round on it like a chopper in the trunk. Pink ribbon woman, she gon' live forever. Even though the doctor said she only get a month, said it's my life, and you only get it once. These flaws smell too damn good to be living in the funk, so I finna get it in, and I'm finna get it crunk, and I'm finna get the living. Eyes on a mission from the jump. Breast cancer can't hold me back. That's the answer when they told me that. It can knock me down, but I'm gon' be back strong. Down for whatever exceptional, and I don't know how to quit, and I never said never. You can have that hair, cause real talk, bitch, I think I look better. Let's done. Fighter, everything inside her. Born live from death row. Drop the charges, see the lifer. Cell phones and your lighters. Need you to put them up higher. So when the candles on her birthday cake, might set the thing on fire. For every time they counted me out, and my back was up against the wall, I could have died, but I came out fighting, fighting. Could have died, but I came out. If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need.
It's kinda hard with you not around. Know you in heaven smiling down, watching us while we pray for you. Every day we pray for you, till the day we meet again. In my heart is where I keep you, friend. Memories give me the strength I need to proceed, the strength I need to believe. My thoughts big, I just can't define. Wish I could turn back the hands of time. Us in the six, shop for new clothes and kicks. You and me taking flicks, making hits, stages they receive you on. Still can't believe you're gonna give anything to hear half a breath. still living your life after death.
Wendy, thank you. It was beautiful. And everyone who has ever tried to take a picture of Fred can appreciate how difficult it was to find 20 minutes worth of pictures of him. Yeah. I have so many countless pictures of him like this, looking away. His shyness was legendary, which was baffling to everybody because everyone else who knew him was so proud of him, wanted to share him with the world. A friend sent me this, knowing that today would probably be challenging. I think it's beautiful. Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give but cannot. All that unspent love gathered up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in the hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go. And I think that for today, especially when we lose somebody the way we lost Fred, that there's so much more love. There's so much, for me, so many more experiences that I wish we could have together. So there is, in a way, no place for this love to go. And yet here's a room full of people who Fred has touched and have all come together in his honor. So this is a wonderful opportunity for anyone who would like to come up and share whatever stories about Fred they feel like sharing with this room full of people who could not love him anymore. I know we will all have a lot left inside of us when we think about him because his time was taken from us. But through each other in this little network, and Wendy and me, please find me on Facebook, reach out to me anytime and share your Fred stories because I love them. If there's long silence, I'll come back and say something funny that I remember from our time together, but please feel free to just come up in your own time and share your Fred stories.
It's a funny story. Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Wilkie. So you saw me in the picture. I box professional fighters, and Fred used to train me here and there as far as strength and conditioning. So I got a group of guys that I go fight, spar, go work. So I go to a random gym without my coach, and I said, Fred, come with me. So we go to this gym over there by the Palms. So I walk into the gym, I don't see the guys I normally spar. And his other trainer I kind of know, I fight his fighters. He goes, Will, we're going to do something a little different today. I go, what's up? The heavyweight champion of the world's in the ring. He's in there. Samuel Peter, the Nigerian Nightmare. You know? He said, you got this, man. You know, he gonna work with you. You know? So I'm like, all right. I get ready, you know, get warmed up, jump in the ring. You know? I'm in there, I'm touching him. Hook, jab, body shot. You know, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling sexy. You know, it's a little swag. Samuel punched me in my chest. Like it's like I felt like I got hit by a cannon. You know, I go up against the rope. I'm like, oh shoot! I said, all right. So I gather myself. I'm not down, and I'm touching him again. And like the last second or so in that ring, I get clocked. Boom! I'm on the floor. Boom! I get back up. I said, what the F happened? What the F happened? And the referee jumps in there and says, I said, Fred, what the F happened, dude? What happened? He said, I don't know what the F happened. I said, you out there, Fred? You got the camera. What you mean you don't know what happened? He said, well, I don't know what the F happened. Fred's looking at me. I'm looking at him. We're both confused. Fred says, yo, you got in the ring with the heavyweight champion of the world, dude. What do you expect? So that's my story. It's the funniest story of me and Fred. It was hilarious, All right. Since I'm up,
my name is McKetty, and Fred is my cousin. The unfortunate thing is that I only got to spend 4 hours with Fred. I met Fred, I knew of Fred from many years ago, because our parents used to talk about them, and that's basically how our family was them and us. But a few years ago, Daphne told me, oh, you're going to Vegas, go see Fred. I said, she was the only family and cousin that I was in touch with, but she was trying to get the rest of us to meet and know each other. And so I said, all right, I'll call him. She sent me his number like 3 months ahead, and I waited till the last minute to call him. And he's like, oh, you're here? I'm like, yeah. Was staying at South Point. And he's like, okay, I have no idea where he was. He said, I'll be there. And then he shows up after my conference. And it was about 8 o'clock, and we started talking. And unlike with Seth, is within the first 5 minutes, it seems like we have been with each other for all our lives. We caught up as much as we could, and next thing we knew, it was like midnight, and he's like, oh, I gotta go home. And it was the best meeting I ever had, and it was the first and best beer I ever had. And since then, every time I think of beer, I think of Fred. So thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me share this short story about Fred.
Hi, I'm Paul, and I knew Fred back in high school. We met in 7th grade. If anybody remembers Fred, early on he had a really bad knee injury back in high school. You saw the football pictures, and so he had this really bad knee injury, and he sat behind me in math class, and I wasn't really into math at all. But I would turn around, and there was Fred drawing like the Hulk. He was always drawing, and he's like drawing the Hulk, and I was just like so impressed because it had like realistic muscles, and I'm like, damn, this kid can draw. I want to be his friend. So he was on crutches, and I actually asked to carry his books, and would carry his books down the hall, and just that's kind of how our friendship started, just me hanging out with him, kind of following him around until he was like, all right, you're here, so you're everywhere I look. So, but we became really tight after that. And one of my first memories of him is again 8th grade dance, and break dancing was like the height. I mean, fat shoelaces, everything. And 8th grade dance, and we're out there on the dance floor and it's like not a contest, but we're battling, and he actually picks me up, puts me on his head, and starts spinning me around like a helicopter. Now, I was a lot smaller back then, of course, probably like that big, but I don't know, I was just so proud, just like, here was this amazing thing that we did, and that amazing move, and I was just on cloud nine for like the rest of my life, even still today, that we actually did that. I don't know. But so Fred as well loved music and loved to dance. If anybody's ever seen him dance, he's super smooth. And he was always smooth. That's the thing. He was quiet, but he was always like romantic and smooth, and just, my aunts would listen to him on the phone and be like, when can we meet him? That voice. So, but they had, again, we had a lip sync contest back then, which was a thing to do in like 11th grade. And we decided, if you remember, there was a remake of the song My Girl back then. It was like Club Nouveau or something like that. Well, we were going to do that, and we put on, we wore tuxedo outfits. And my mom in my living room would teach us all the temptation moves, She taught us everything. And we would practice, and we were so smooth. And I'm going to do Fred's move, because if you can think of Fred and how tall he was, and me and this other short guy out in front, and we're starting like this. And here comes Fred. You just picture his face. He's just like, I got sunshine. He was our lead singer. So, and there's that one. And I'm trying to think of another story of him. Anybody knew his dad? And just real quick, anybody knew his dad, Jacques? He would sleep all day. He worked at night. And one time Fred forgot his key, which our whole goal as high school kids was not to wake up Jacques. And one time we woke him up, and Fred and Jacques just comes out, and he goes, what's the matter, Fred? You forgot your key? And we just busted on Fred with that for years to come. It was just always, what's the matter, Fred? You forgot your key? I don't know. Fred was incredible. I probably got more stories, but these were some of the funniest memories of him. So, yeah. Fred, man, thanks. And thanks for doing this one day. It was really great to meet you a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. And I shared with you how special he thought you were, some of the things he told me. So, just great. It's nice to see everybody here and coming together for Brother Man. So, thanks, guys.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gamel. I'm from Oakland, and we met Fred around early 2000s. And I met him through Rata at a company called Measy and he came in and just kind of was an intern. And amazing artist, amazing person, very quiet, subdued. Like my man said, he was very smooth, man. We used to hit up a party called Extra Classic, one story. It was like an old school party, and we would go every month. And just every time we would go, man, like Fred, man, like some girl just be gazing at him, and then next thing you know, like he's dancing on the floor, had the smooth moves, and next thing you know, he was kissing in the club, man. So much that like we used to call it fretting, and we still call it fretting. Like so, like whenever we see one of our boys kissing in the club, we like, oh, you fretting in the club? So yeah, that's a funny story, man. Yeah, man. So yeah, like peace, rest in peace, brother, man, and you will be missed, brother. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Barry, and I met Fred early to mid-'90s in Phoenix, and feeling an unusual amount of pressure right now because, and not for any noble reasons, I feel like I should know everybody here, and that some of you probably know me, and I have no clue. But Fred is, he's my daughter's godfather. Probably the only person that I would consider a brother. I have 3 biological brothers, and he's the only one that I could consider to be my brother. I say all that because I've got too many stories to try and sort through to find what's going to be entertaining and get a laugh out of you all. So I'll just tell you, until this last year, I never really realized the certain feeling that I'd had because I got so close with Fred that periodically he'd go out of town or he'd go off and do other things, and we'd reconnect on the phone, and he'd start to tell me stories about experiences he was having with you all, and I would feel this feeling arise, and the moment that I became aware of it, I would squash it down, so I never really thought about it until recently. It was this Gollum-like jealousy. Like, okay, well, that's a fine story, but you know that I'm your best friend, right? And it was during this last year I started seeing everyone's responses on Facebook and seeing you all conveying the feelings that were supposed to be reserved for me. I don't know who you people are. Fred was my best friend. And then it dawned on me, I covet Fred's friendship. And, oh, this would make him so uncomfortable seeing me lose it. So let's go. But that's who he is. He's the guy who set out to just be good at everything he put his hands to, except being that guy that we would all fawn over on a day like this. He's the kind of man that causes people to covet his friendship. Throughout this entire past year, every conversation I had with him, he was more concerned about my well-being. I couldn't make it up to see him as much as I wanted to. It was just impossible, and I would tell him this from time to time, and it dawned on me today that I still had a text. No worries. Stop feeling like you're coming up short as my friend. That's ridiculous. Obviously you believe in me. Who else is the godfather to your daughter? And it dawned on me that there might be some other people in here who Fred had the privilege of being their children's godfather. And that's a hard thing for a guy like me to accept because, like I said, he's my best friend. I don't know who you people are. One of the things that, when I first met Fred, I met him over the phone first, before I met him face to face. And I don't know why, but meeting him in person after talking to him on the phone was just a surprise to me. Like I couldn't put that voice with that face. Now it just seems, oh, yeah, that's Fred. That's his smooth, very white voice. One of the things that I'm going to miss desperately is his laughter. I'm a fan of stand-up comedy. I consider myself a walking encyclopedia of everything stand-up comedy, but one thing Fred would not suffer is joke telling. Like Fred would, he would never, hey, yo, Barry, knock, knock. Like that would never happen. But he absolutely loved exploring in conversation the foibles and the flaws that we all have that make us human. And when he would try to tell a story, and he couldn't finish it because he made himself laugh, just erupt in laughter. Like, it was one of the best things to observe. So there's one story, I hesitate to tell it, because it might sound like he was making fun of somebody. But at one point, I think, Wendy, you were taking charge of the diet in the house. And Fred called me up one day and he said, Barry, you know, Wendy came home with this gigantic bag of carrots. And I said, well, what's with the, oh, she's, you know, wanting to do juicing and everything, and I'm all for it, but Barry, this bag of carrots. It's like, I don't even like carrots that much. If I did like carrots that much, I would not, and instantly he and I hit on this, and I said, oh, would you hear that? And he's, what are you talking about? He said, it sounded like there's a forklift dropping off a pallet of carrots. And he just erupted, and we must have talked for about an hour about nothing but carrots, and maybe you should just don't say anything and let the whole family turn orange, and then express some dissatisfaction. But at the end of it, he would always be sure to say, to recognize that this is what made everybody human, when our intentions, our loving intentions for each other get the best of us and create these things that we can laugh about. I miss my friend. Fred's the greatest man I've ever met. And it's an odd thing because I feel this way about a person that I would typically think like this is a character out of a story or some drama or he's some action hero, but he's my friend. And he never made me feel like, I was always trying to catch up to the guy. Never made me feel like that. I miss my friend. I love you, brother.
I'm just fixing that. So take your time and come up. And all I can say to this experience is, I don't know if you'll ever be in another room where everybody has this kind of fondness towards the person that you want to share these feelings towards. So you can call each other. I really hope people in this room become friends. I think that would make Fred very happy. It's nice to see some faces here that I've heard stories about for so many years. But it feels good to share this stuff with an audience that wants so much to receive it. So be brave and take your time. Come up.
Hello. What's up, everybody? My name is Ratwa. Let's see, I don't know if I have any like specific stories about Fred, but I'll just talk about just my experience meeting him, getting to know him. I met him back in 2002, was around the time he was living out in San Jose, going to art school, and I was a young buck, maybe like early 20s. And Fred's here, maybe, I think he's like 10 years older than me. But he was just this odd guy in art school that just stood out, just real quiet. And for some reason, I just gravitated towards him. There was just this quality about him that, I don't know, I just like weird people. He was a weird guy, and we just hit it off. And I think at the time I was designing at a silk screen shop, and I had questions about, efficiency and working on things, and he was just this endless source of, like, information and guidance for me at that time, and he always made me work for getting the answer, or at least, like, pose a question that allowed me to kind of think more. Just overall, he's just been, considered him as my mentor, you know, growing up. And it's not something that I asked for, but, you know, I think we were all lucky enough to experience the love that, you know, he wanted to give to the people that he wanted to give it to. And when I, you know, see these pictures of him and stuff, it's you know, he was a gift. He was a gift to me, my family, and he taught me a lot about work ethic and just not giving up. And I'm thankful that I got to experience that with him. And I'm happy to see you all here.
Hello, everyone. My name's Eden. Some may know me as Tone. Met Fred through the same group as Rata and Gamel there, working at Measy Art. And it was like this instant connection. Fred was just, he's this big, quiet guy sitting in the corner with Ra just grinding until 2, 3 in the morning, pushing out motion graphics, 3D art, and all this. And yeah, this was back in San Jose. So when I made the decision to move out to Vegas to work on some other projects, around the same time, Fred had moved to Atlanta, I think it was. He had moved to Atlanta, and things weren't really working out there for him. At the time, I got this job at Caesars, working with some of these fine folks here, and we had an opening for a designer come up, and the first person I thought of was Fred. Like, this team needs Fred, his work ethic, his dedication, everything. And I made the call. They talked to him once on the phone, hired him on the spot, and I think he worked remotely from Atlanta for about 5 months before he actually moved here to Vegas. And once he came, the whole dynamic of the team, it just gelled. He was just like that missing piece that made the team just that much better. Over the time, I've had my difficult times. He's had his difficult times, but we were always there for each other. And my daughter just recently got accepted and moved to Hawaii for University of Hawaii, and I have to say, would not have gotten there without Fred. He met her when she was probably about 3. Now she's 20, and my life, her life, a lot of people's lives have changed just because Fred was in it. Gonna miss him. I miss him now. It's hard to think of a world without him in it. So that's all I have to say.
So, I'm Joe, one of Fred's friends. I don't have like a funny story or anything like that, but I'm going to follow up with Rata and Eaton. I had the pleasure of working with Fred and Eaton on a project a few years ago. I'm like the little guy on the totem pole. These guys are like, technical giants. And if I recall correctly, it was crunch time, and they were working like, 3 days straight or something like that, something ridiculous. And they invited me in to work with them, just on a small scale, just gathering a few assets, in Photoshop and technical, Mac stuff, right? And by the end of that night, I was so impressed with his knowledge and his ability to teach and his work ethic, again. Just effort beyond compromise. I've lost some of the most significant people in my life, and none of those losses have taken a toll like this one has. And the fact that everyone is here means that you all probably feel very much the same way. So, that's it. Thank you.
I'm Lauren. I'm part of the volleyball community that Fred was very much a part of. There's 2 tables of us back here. I was 22 when I moved to Las Vegas. Sorry, I'm a crier, so let me just, it happens. And struggling really hard to make friends. And Fred was part of that volleyball community that kind of welcomed us all in. And him and I always kind of had a big brother, little sister relationship. I was really tough on the rules, and Fred was very new to volleyball, and I was like, you can't do that. That's illegal. That's against the rules. That's my point, because I'm 22 and I have to win. I hadn't understood yet that adult recreation is about socialization and fun. But even through all of that banter, he was so warm and a part of that community, which is why so many of us are here from that today, and so many of us are getting together later at Sunset Park because of him. But one of the last things when he was fighting, and he came and he visited us in one of our volleyball leagues, he took the moment to tell me that he was so happy for me, and that I really looked happy, and I'd been so mature, and he was proud of me. And in that moment, you don't realize like how much somebody means to you until you're like, wow, I made Fred proud. Like, I used to bug him, and now he's proud of me. And he had that way of lifting all of us up. I'm sure I'm not alone in our community that he positively impacted. But one of my favorite memories of Fred, and I think I brought it up to a couple of people, I don't know if I told you this story, but when you play sand volleyball in Las Vegas, it's 110 degrees at 8 a.m. Like, it's terrible. I don't know why any of us do it. But so in between games, we're kind of like, you're in the shade and you're chugging water and you're like taking a break, and Fred's in the middle of the courts in the sun doing a walking handstand. And that's the athlete that he was, and that's what he brought to like our community, and that's what I remember him. I remember sitting there dying on the sidelines, being 22 years old, thinking to myself, how is he doing a walking handstand right now? So I'm just so happy he was part of our community, and so thankful that I got the chance to meet him. And he's going to be missed. I'm sure that many of them could say it much better than I am, but it felt very important to me to tell all of you how much that he meant to our community and how much we're all going to miss him. And if any of you are looking for some more social activities, we'll be at Sunset Park probably from 6 p.m. till 11 p.m. It'll go on, so come and experience that part of Fred too, because he meant a lot to us. So, thank you.
It took me a few minutes to come up here because I was kind of trying to think of, like, what are some of the best stories or things that I wanted to share about Fred. So I've got kind of a list. Some funny, some more emotional, but like Lauren mentioned, a whole bunch of us just play volleyball together, and Fred was one of these guys that just had, like, it's tough to explain. I'm sure you guys back there know what I'm talking about, but it's like you talk to him for 2 minutes, and you know nothing about him, he knows nothing about you, but you just feel this, like, close, like, warm connection with him. So I remember when I first met him, I had that feeling. This was 8 years ago, and it was just really easy to be his friend. So he and I, we became friends. We weren't best of friends like Seth, but I knew about his life and family and all that. Anyway, let me digress. Sorry, I'm all over the place. That's why I made a list. So when I was first playing with Fred, and we'd be on teams together, and we would be winning, he'd get really excited, and he'd give these really hard high fives. And I don't know if you know Fred, like, if you ever, like, shaken his hand or given him, like, a bro hug or something, he's a dense guy. So we'd be playing, we'd be on a team together, and, we'd be losing or something, and, bump, set, hit, volleyball. He'd crush one, and I'd be on his team. I'm like, shit, that means I gotta give him a high five. So then we'd come, like, high five, and he, like seriously, it would actually, like, hurt to where I couldn't hit the rest of the game. So when I'd start giving him high fives, instead of, like, going into it, I'd just stick my hand out, and then, like, when he'd swing, last second, I'd, like, pull it back. So it's kind of like a high three, maybe, I don't know, but that was one of my fun stories of Fred way back when. So, like, ever since then, I mean, I'd always know, like, if I'm giving Fred a high five, I gotta pull back just a touch, or else you're gonna pay for it. So we always played, and I'm not being rude, I'm just kind of going through my list here, sorry guys. So we always played in tournaments together at Sunset Park. Our friend Paul has a court in his backyard, so we're fortunate to have that. And we would set up little draw tournaments, so we would all get there, we'd pick names out of a hat, and we'd be on teams. So part of that is everybody throws in $20. Winning team gets, the prize or whatever. And then, kind of the glory of winning those tournaments is, you get to take pictures with your friends with $60, $80 or whatever. So I would like playing those all the time, like always. So there was a period where I just got busy with work or something, and I just wasn't playing in any of these. I just wasn't in town. So he sent me a text, and he's like, hey, man, are you all right? I was like, yeah, how are you? Like, how are things? He goes, no, all good. I just haven't seen too many pictures of you holding $80, so I wondered if you were all right, because it's like every time I turn around, you're winning a tournament holding $60 and smiling at the camera. So I thought that was a fun little memory. Like, he checked on me because he didn't see me winning any volleyball tournaments. That was kind of cool. And that was about 3 years ago. So then, back to the juicing thing that you mentioned. So, when he was going through this tough fight that I know nothing of, right? Usually I'm the guy that, like, my friends come to me, like, for guidance, help, whatever. Like, I'm the one they lean on, usually. And not with Fred. Like, Fred is always the wisdom giver. He was always kind of the gentle giant, I heard somebody say. It's like the perfect explanation of him. But usually people lean on me, and when somebody's going through a battle like the one he's going through, you kind of want to help them sort of lean on you. So I did. And that was probably one of the first times in my life where I just, like, felt truly and absolutely powerless. Like, when somebody is going through that and you can't help, you can't share anything to, like, all you can do is just be there to support somebody. And I never really went through that. Like, call it male mentality, call it what you want, but you always want to help whoever's kind of giving you, I guess that's why men and women fight all the time. Men are trying to solve, and I don't know, whatever. But, I'm trying to help him, like, with this problem, and I'm just completely powerless. And then he shares with me the organic juicing thing, which I've done a bunch of times just on a personal level because I'm a food snob. And then he's telling me, my dinner was broccoli and green juice the day before or something like that. And I suggested, hey, let's, to get you out of the house and get you away from some of this stuff, let's go play poker or something. And he's like, hey, yeah, thanks. A lot of people don't get that. Usually like, hey, let's go to a bar and get a drink and catch up. which obviously he couldn't do in his state. So we did that. We went and we played cards, just he and I, and we played twice, and this was probably in the last 60 days of our relationship. And the first time we played, we went and we got lunch someplace locally in Henderson. And sorry for rambling. It's like a lot of these memories just kind of spewing out, and anyway. So we got lunch, and then we played cards, just the two of us, and he started to open up. It's not always easy to get Fred to show weakness. Like, he's a tough guy, just this ripped, jacked dude. He's not going to sit there and like cry for you. It's just not in his nature. But this time he kind of opened up, and he shared some of the side effects, and he was like, not going into too much detail, like tingling fingers, yellowing, and things like that. And he was like, everything just feels hot, and he just shared with me a lot of that stuff. And as I'm watching this strong guy that I've known for 8 years just always be this powerhouse, the guy who's snapping my hand off of my arm, and I'm hearing him talk about this and showing his weakness, he then, in typical unselfish Fred fashion, tells me what he's going to, I guess what he is dreading the most is knowing that he's not going to be around to support and provide wisdom to his daughters, which, if you think about what that means, it's not, hey, I don't get to see them grow. It's not the selfish piece of, hey, I want to be there to enjoy it with them. It was, I couldn't give more to them, even in his last days, which was just typical unselfish Fred. And I thought that was worth mentioning today because it was just two of us, and while somebody is like, I'll even say suffering through something like that, to say, the thing I'm dreading the most isn't what's to come; it's what I can't give to them. I thought that was really powerful. Another thing, some of you know, back there, volleyball community, I recently moved to San Francisco, and it wasn't really an easy transition. A lot goes with that, packing up, moving, downsizing, blah, 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 blah. Throughout that whole thing, he offered encouragement and, hey, this is a good long-term thing for you, understanding. And by the way, this was 4 months ago while he's still kind of going through all of his personal stuff. And just, again, shows you who he is, what he's about, because even through his situation, he's trying to help kind of uplift me through what now looks like a very simple, stupid, minute thing compared to what he was going through. We held a poker tournament for him a little while ago, and I'm a car guy, he's a car guy, so I thought, hey, we'll just go for a spin. So took a fun car out for a spin, went out into kind of the middle of nowhere, and I got out and said, all right, you drive us home. And he reluctantly said, no, I'm not going to drive it, it's blah, blah, blah. He was nervous to drive my car because he didn't want to mess it up or anything. So I basically told him, well, we're going to just park it here and Uber home if you don't drive us home. So he drove us. And throughout that whole thing, this was maybe, 8 months ago, something like that. Throughout it, this was before things got too serious for him, I guess, in terms of side effects. So you just saw pure, happy, joyous Fred. And he was all reluctant, and he was kind of wussing it. So I literally from the passenger seat, I jammed his foot down to accelerate for us. So, because I could tell he was just really nervous doing it. And then he's screaming whoa, just really enjoyed it. And it took me doing that to him. But anyway, that was just a memory I wanted to share because it was just a pure, happy. Nothing else matters at this moment, but kind of blasting down the highway. And I guess the last memory I have of Fred was it was in late April when we were playing cards together. We met at a coffee shop called Grouchy Joe's or something over in Henderson, and it's just one-on-one. We're sharing stories, this and that. And at this point, it was, he was really struggling physically. And just the fact that he got out of the house to get there with us, or with me, was kind of a tough day for him. But in typical Fred fashion, again, he was fighting through it, was not negative, did whatever he could to stay positive, and kind of wished me well. And we sort of had this like unspoken, like, you know, because I was moving a week later. We kind of had this unspoken, like, you know, best of luck. And I guess I really treasure that last meeting with him, because you know, it was kind of like my way to say goodbye, which a lot of folks don't have. So anyway, that's my like ramble of 7 stories, and every time my wrist hurts from a high five, I will forever think of Fred Vieux. So anyway, thank you.
Hey, sorry I've been up before, but I just have to share this because I think it's important. So when I found out, I had known Fred was having stomach issues. That was kind of the first thing that he was having go on, was these really big stomach issues. And so I'm sitting at home in my living room, and the day that he told me he had stage 4 cancer, it was just, you know, it was a shock, because you didn't expect somebody to say stage 4 after just having stomach problems. So, you know, right away, like I turn white, my heart drops, and I'm just like, what the hell? Didn't really know how to react, but so I started to get a little bit upset on the phone, and he just goes, "Bully, don't trip." And I'm like, all right, I hear you. Don't trip. And that pretty much got me through, you know, the next 18 months with him, because I knew that's all he needed from me, you know, on the phone. And you know, as much as I would hang up the phone and cry and have really, you know, tough times, you know, I just kept hearing the fact that he told me that right at the beginning, just, you know, and I almost think today on the way here when I was driving, I was like, you know what, that's what he would want us to keep doing even after this. We're going to have our time to grieve, but, you know, in Fred's words, you can just almost hear him say, "Don't trip." So I just want to end it with on that.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Trey Bittaker. I met Fred in 1992. And number one, this is amazing. I mean, to hear all these stories and everybody that he's touched, absolutely amazing. So I was going to Arizona State. I lived next door. It was my second year of college. And I go next door because we used to move every year. It's not like you're stable. Like you're packing your stuff and you're moving every single year. And of course, I took the 6-year tour. And he was there a lot with me. So I go next door, and it's the summertime, and having to move out, and I knock on this guy's door because we were partying. It was an apartment. We were raging next door, and I'm like, okay, I'll see if this guy, if we can live with him. So I go to knock on the door, opens the door, and there's Fred. Now what? Because he didn't live there. And so the door opens. I'm like, whoa. I said, "Is John here?" He's like, "No, he's not." Closes the door. I'm like, what just happened? So I go back next door, and I'm sitting there, and then, you know, I see John on the balcony next door because we shared balconies. I said, "Hey, John, I was coming to stop by and, you know, just ask you a couple questions because I wanted to move in with him." And I said, "But somebody else answered the door, and he kind of shut the door on me." "Oh, yeah, that's just Fred, and, you know, he just, he doesn't have time for that, and, you know, that's about all he had." I said, all right, I get that, but, you know, on to the story. "Hey, would you like to move in? I need a place to stay for the summer." He's like, "Yeah, come on, move in and sleep on the floor." I said, okay, and then I got to know Fred. Fred was coming over. He's a mutual friend. And that year, so after the summer, John, Fred, myself, we moved in with Mike LaForte, who's sitting up here. And so Fred was an architecture major. And for those of you who don't know, you talk about work ethic. I mean, he just worked all the time on architecture. He's passionate about it. He's trying to get into the school at Arizona State and really worked hard at it. it was a very, very difficult school to get into. And so over the years, it never came to fruition. And we had lived together year after year after year. And so one of the things I'll share with you, we probably lived together for all the times that he was in Phoenix, probably better of 9 years. So the funny thing that I'll share with you about living together is I'm not very strong. You can just sense that. He is. So as I worked and made money and all that stuff, I would come home late at night because I'd work. I was commissioned sales. So I'd come home with like a 6-pack of beer. Fred, let's go out. We're going to go have some fun. He's like, no, I don't have any money. Was never one to say, hey, I'll ride your coattails, like sponsor me, let's go out. He's like, no, I got to study for exams and so forth, so I'll see you later. Sure enough, I'd get rolling in at about 1. There he is still doing his work. And they would say, how did it go? And then he would stop and listen to my shenanigans. Somehow I think he lived vicariously through me during those times, but those remain to be said. So in our moving, I accumulated stuff over these years. And so one day we're in the U-Haul truck, and we're moving all my stuff. And of course, he's at the heavy end of everything because I can't lift. And he just looks at me, and he's at this huge desk with stuff in it we didn't even take out. He's at the end of it, and he finally sets it down. He goes, why am I on the heavy end of this? And this is after like 9 years of moving. And I said, I don't know, but let's keep moving it. He just grabbed it and kept on going on. So, there's so many stories about, you think about, family. He was in my wedding, and my family just adored him and adores him today. Friendship. The athlete. So, for those of you that don't know Phoenix, there's this mountain there. It's called Camelback Mountain. We lived, probably 15 miles away from the mountain, so he didn't have a car, so he rode a bike. And what he would do is he would ride from our house to Camelback Mountain in the morning before he had to go to work in downtown Phoenix. He would run up this thing, not once, but twice. I did it one time. I got 3/4 of the way up. I almost died. That was it. He's doing it twice, and then he rode his bike to work in downtown Phoenix. He would work all day in this, it was just bad conditions. It was a printing shop, and he took me in there one time, and it just smelled like chemicals, but he didn't care. He was doing the computer work and doing the drafting. He'd ride his bike back to Camelback at the end of working day, do it again for good measure, and then ride his back in the rain. I'll never forget it. I'm sitting there at home, doing whatever I'm doing. He comes home rolling in, just wet. I'm like, Fred, what have you been doing all day? I just went to work. And he just walked in. It was no big deal. And I'm like, no, me and Fred and I, we just had the most amazing conversation. As you guys have alluded to, TV is nothing. He is everything. And you just sit down, and you would get so deep in it with him. It was amazing. So, fast forward, he gets ill, and I lost my dad to a similar thing, so he was asking me questions. I think one of the things that Fred really was frustrated with is the lack of answers and transparency and what's the next step. I think he really just wanted to kind of see what the path ahead is, and he was strong enough to understand and accept what that might be, but he failed to get answers. And so I think he was frustrated with that. So I came up, a couple times over the year, and we talked all the time. I wish it was more. So we played poker because I played a lot of poker over the years, and he eventually got there, which I'm glad it was late in his life, but that he took it on, and not back in college when I was doing it, but he would, yeah. So we're sitting there. So we're sitting at the poker table, and I feel I'm pretty good and probably better than him. But he's telling me about all these tournaments he's winning, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see it. So we get down, and we're at the final table. I'm short stacked, he's the big stack, and I'm just waiting. So finally, he antes up. For those of you that play poker, he throws in some money. It goes around. I push all in. He looks at me across from the table because he's over there. I won't ever forget. He looks at me and just kind of smiles and goes, I'm all in. So I go, sorry, Fred, I got kings. He just goes, smiled, didn't say a word, flipped him over, they were aces. So the cards come, You know, he knocks me out of the tournament. I stand up, hug my man Fred. He beat me fair and square, and he's a better man all the way through. I love the guy. And the last thing I'll share with you is one of the deep conversations that we had. I was in college. I was still, young behind the ears and, wet behind the ears, and didn't know a whole lot about life. So we're having a conversation. This is years after we knew each other. I mean, we probably knew each other 5-6 years. Somehow we got in this conversation, because we couldn't be more different in upbringing and, just culturally and that kind of stuff. And he explained, he shared a story with me about how he was perceived by some people in the general public. And one of the stories he shared with me is how he'd walk down the street and people would become this way and they'd cross the street. And I couldn't fathom it. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, that's just the way it is, being a man of color. And we talked about that topic at length for a very long time, because I didn't even have an idea of what that was like. But he taught me that. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me a lot about life, about people and caring, and not about who you are or what you do, or if you got to know him and you really got to get into it, the man, he's special beyond belief. And I think all of you are a testimony to that today. We're going to miss him, we're going to remember him, and we're going to love him. Thank you.
I am so moved by the fact that everyone took the time, traveled across the United States to be here. I'm Daphne Hewitt. I'm Fred's cousin. And I have heard many stories of many of you who have spoken but never really associated a face with the name. Let's see. I was 16 when I moved here from Haiti, and I lived with my uncle at first in Brooklyn until I discovered what the suburbs were like. And pleaded to Fred's mom to allow me to come live with them. Let's just say transition from all-girl Catholic high school to the worst high school in Brooklyn was not a good one. And so she said yes, and Fred was very quiet, and we were kind of in the house and didn't really talk very much, but there was this quiet admiration for one another, and he helped me with my English sometimes. And I'm a year older than Fred, so I moved away, as far away from New York as I could, because it was way too cold. So I was in Florida, and this is before email, before cell phones. I don't know how, but I managed to keep in touch with him. Everywhere I went, maybe initially we did it through email. I don't remember. I've had 5 children. I was just telling everybody. With every kid, I've lost a part of my brain. But if you knew Fred well, you knew that he was reserved and the family relationships were not what we all wanted. And I'm not trying to give props to myself, but I was that piece that worked really hard at keeping him connected to the rest of the family. And sometimes, too, my not realizing how much he wanted it to be that way, I worked really hard at trying to force things that may not be what he wanted in the end. But I would say this, Fred is also very loved by his family. We are grieving because we didn't realize we had so little time with him. To be just 47 and be so strong physically. We just don't understand how it could be him. I had the privilege and the blessing to spend time with Wendy and saw her commitment and love. Thank you. Over the years, he told me about the volleyball. He told me about the friends in college. I followed Seth, and Seth came to my home with Fred. And as I sat here, pieces of the stories were awakening memories. I remember him telling me that he would ride a bicycle to and from work, and I'd forgotten about that. And my husband said, "In Arizona?" And I said, "Yeah." And it made me remember how my husband offered to give him his car so he could have a car. And this is something that was deep in my memory. Didn't even remember that. Fred got to know my son, my first one, who's 19. And you guys know what teenagers are like. Even though he grew up knowing Fred, there was a period where things got busy, they weren't talking. But as he started applying to colleges, Fred would make it a point to text him and talk with him and try to guide him. And my son appreciated that. And I wish he could be here to hear how much his cousin was admired. But in saying this, Fred tells me, I want you to tell Kyle that I'll never forget how much his dad's gesture meant to me. And shall something happen to me, I want him to know how much I loved him. So I had the privilege of also seeing Fred, 5 days before he died. For Mother's Day, as not fluke, but you sit there and you toy, should you go, should you not, should you really do it? And I decided I did, and I'm so glad that I did. I'm so, so glad I got to spend that time with him. Thank you is all I'd like to say is thank you for the time and the stories. We cherish them. Our family is grieving. A lot of them couldn't be here today, but they're here in spirit. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laurel Sneed Jr. I met Fred at Caesars along with Eaton, and can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. As well as the Caesars folks. Right when I met Fred, he was responsible for getting me hired over there. One of the motion artists, and Fred's one of those people when you talk to him, you just I'm sure you guys could all attest. It's like, wow, I'm really meeting a man of substance and of character. And when you recognize that, it's just kind of shocking because you're like, hey, I'm in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Fred had an amazing ability because we're both fellow artists and we're just talking about different ideas and why won't this work, and then he just goes in his low voice, you just gotta get in there and just figure it out. And I'm like, all right. And it was good because as I'm hearing tonight, when you want to go deep, he'll go deep. You want to have a serious conversation, it could just go that way. And it didn't take much. It didn't take long. They're breathtakingly informative, the wisdom and the guidance that you would get from just the simplest of conversations, to the point where, hey, bro, I gotta get back to my desk and get to work. He's like, yeah, you better go do that. He really helped me out there because I got hired out of Burbank because I was taking care of a parent, had to bring her out, and it was very helping me. It just in corporate America, I had a hard time dealing with it, and just talking to him, he was a very soothing and understanding individual, just like how to portray myself. So no fun stories, but just very informative to know that I'm talking to a Titan. So as my mom's health got worse, I just, you think you're going right, and life makes you turn left to do what you got to do. I saw a text and some information on Facebook from Wendy of how bad and how quickly his health has gotten, and it just took the breath out of me. And just hearing all these stories, and then seeing all you people is an affirmation of his teachings and talking to me of just outlive the stereotype, just go out, do you, and be you, and don't look back. And then seeing all of you and hearing all these breathtaking, wonderful stories of how he touched each and every one of you is just fills me with an unbelievable amount of joy of the privilege I had to meet someone like that, because you know when you're meeting a gift, you know when you're meeting someone of substance, and it's amazing. I too got to see him at that coffee function where it's the first time I've seen him in years, how much weight he lost. And I was happy and then frustratingly angry at the same time, because in my head it's like, he's given so much, and why this guy? Not that you really wish that upon anybody, what someone like that is going through, but you're just frustrated, and it's like it just shocks you how it hits you. But to see him up and standing, he lost an incredible amount of weight, and to hear the same things what everyone's here saying tonight, unselfishly, he's like, what's up, fellow Titan? How's your mom doing? And it just blew me away, took the wind out of me. Needless to say, we caught up as much as we did, and I was very late to work that day because it was morning, but I didn't care. I felt I was talking to someone probably wasn't going to be talking to, and I was taking it all in. We would have such deep conversations. They would happen out of nowhere in the elevator at Caesars or lunch, getting a drink. And he's all, what do you think about that? And I'm like, yeah, bro. I'm like, what do you think about that? And then before we know it, it's like, oh, man, that lunch hour went long. And we have a lot of those, and I cherish those greatly. So it is amazing seeing the faces to the name, meeting all his friends, and how much he touched their life. And if there's anything I can get out of this is don't take anything for granted at all. Like, I'm loving these pictures. I'm loving these stories. I'm loving the love. I'm loving the positivity. So thank you very much.
Hello. Just trying to come up here when I was ready because I don't want to start bawling and crying. So bear with me. My name is Nancy. I've known Fred for like maybe 13 years. I owe him so much money. Wendy, I owe you a lot of money. I met him and I was like in my 20s and I'm like a big dreamer. So it's like, Fred, we gotta do this, da 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 da. We gotta do this TV shows. My background's in production. I always like kept launching these TV shows and he kept doing my intros and the graphics for it. He's like, when are we gonna get paid? I'm like, I'm pitching to whatever. We'll get it. We're gonna be rich. Don't worry. Just give me some time. So he just always kept working with me and supporting my ventures. And he's like, I'm moving to Vegas. So this thing about like continuing to do these, I'm like, okay, what's in Vegas? He's like, I don't know, but I'm moving on. So he moved on. And then from there, it wasn't about graphics or work anymore. He would text message me or call me about girls, women. He'd be like, hey, so I came up to Vegas and I'm meeting these women and I don't know. I'm like, what happened? What's going on? He's like, well, they're this or they're that. He's like, oh, this is horrible. I'm never gonna get married. This is just not working out in his love life. And I'm like, just hang in there. So I'm just so excited to hear the story how it all happened. Because after he met Wendy, it was like I never got those texts anymore. It was just so thank you, but I kind of missed it, you know. And then after that, it was just work again. He text messaged me. I was looking through the text, and he was like, hey, I got this text that says, hello, this is TLC Booth in Hollywood. We are a commercial casting office, and we're interested in hiring you for a national network spot directed by Joe something. Please give me a call. And he's like, hey, am I being scouted? What's this text from? And I'm like, yeah, I think you are. I don't know if you know how amazing you are. You're this tall, gorgeous man. Why wouldn't you be scouted out randomly? Call him back. He's like, okay. So I don't know if he ever called him back. I guess not, because we didn't see him on the national commercial, right? And then he was just like random, just like, you know, work or whatever. Hey, what do you think about this? And so I just always felt like he was a genius when it came to getting deep and in conversation. It wasn't just about the basics. He would really ask like some solid questions about life and in general. And I got to see him like a month ago and a little longer than that. And he just got deep. He was like, I'm like, did you get a PhD? Are you a doctor now? Like, what's going on? Like, he knew it all. Like, he knew what was going on with his body. He broke it down for me. And I was like, you need to write a book, like, now. Like, you know everything. He's like, yeah, I learned everything about it. And now I know too much. So it was just, he's just an amazing man. And he's just solid. Everything you guys said, he's just awesome. I'm going to miss him. We're all going to miss him. And I remember when I started seeing him on Facebook, I guess sometimes I'm in my own world. I noticed what was going on. I'm blowing him up. I'm blowing up Wendy. I'm like, like going crazy. And he's like, relax. I'm like, where are you? And he just always stayed strong. And he was like, smooth. It's all good. He's like, let's just enjoy, you know, that I'm still here, and I'm just so grateful. Wendy, you're so amazing. To have someone amazing in your life while you're going through that. So, thank you.
When Trey mentioned earlier about Camelback Mountain in Phoenix, is anybody aware of this mountain? Is this just a Phoenix-only phenomenon that we're aware of? This trail in Phoenix, the park systems has a rating system for the different trails because it gets kind of hot in Phoenix. I know you Vegas people think you know what heat is. So they have to post at the entryways to all these trails the difficulty level and whether or not the possibility you're going to die hiking these trails. And Camelback is listed as an extremely difficult trail. It's very difficult to do. I was born and raised in Phoenix, never knew anything about it until Fred, hey, come do this mountain with me. I always fancied myself an athlete. He flew up this thing. I thought, yeah, I can do this hungover. I got a third of the way up, barfed my brains out, went back down. The second time he took me, I got 2/3 of the way up. It wasn't until the third time I figured out you can't do it hungover. There's something about this mountain. I've done other trails, but Fred found the one mountain where a non-religious person can have a spiritual experience. And there's just something that happens to you. Once you start doing this trail a few times, you start realizing, okay, I can do this a little bit faster than I did the day before. You start seeing other people on the trail, and it just becomes a goal, like, okay, catch that person, okay, catch. And then someone will pass you, and they're like 65 years old, and I cannot let this happen again. So this trail becomes this addicting self-pursuit of improvement, chasing your better self, and it's just such a perfect, like, this mountain is Fred. Like, every time he did it, he was trying to get better at it. And like Trey was saying, there was a point when that terrible printing company he was talking about, that was the company that I got Fred a job at. He and I figured it out. It was about a 30-mile bike ride between home, the office, the mountain, a couple of times, and then back at the end of the day. The dude ate everything. It wasn't even food. He was eating it because he was just constantly hungry from all the calories he was burning. And one of the funny things is he started eating the leftovers in the refrigerator in the break room, and didn't seem to bother him at all. And I'm like, Fred, you can't, that's other people's food. He's all very, if I didn't eat that food, you white people would just throw food away all the time. So that's how he rationalized it, that our leftovers, that was a white people problem. One of the things we started doing as we were climbing this mountain is, you just have to, is a way of getting through it. It's about in your top physical form, you can do it in about 30 minutes. But you have to break it into sections. Like, okay, I'm going to do the first up to the handrails. Okay, then I can get to here, then I can get to here. I started bringing other people with me because Fred turned me on to this. And part of the joy was bringing new people and them seeing this ridiculous specimen of a man do it like it was nothing. And there was a point where he was wearing a backpack and putting rocks in the backpack so that he could take it off when he got closer and get that another second better on his time. It's just insanity. So one day, my buddy and I are together. Fred's obviously shot ahead of us, and there's a section of this mountain where you come to a plateau and you can look up and see this sheer rock that nobody in their right mind would try to scale this rock. There's a trail that goes right up next to it. But crazy people would sometimes go off of the trail, and you literally fall to your death if one wrong move. And we see this figure, this massive beast of a man, scramble up the beginning of this rock, and then arms pumping, just running up this. It's probably a 200-yard stretch, and my buddy goes, dude, Fred looks like a Nike commercial right now. There are people in Phoenix who climb Camelback Mountain that I've never met that refer to that rock as Nike Rock. because of Fred. I asked Wendy a while back if it would be okay if I could take some of Fred's ashes, because I want to spread them at the top of that mountain. And it occurred to me that a lot of you know Fred as the athlete, and that mountain, we solved a lot of problems on that mountain, a lot of problems related to women, a lot of personal problems going deep, ridiculous 11-year-old humor. That mountain is Fred, and so it's just completely appropriate that we could do that. So I just wanted to invite any of you, especially the people who share that athlete bond with Fred, if you are going to be in Phoenix, hit me up, because I would love to introduce you to that mountain. And if any of you feel like putting a little extra effort and going up with me to spread Fred's ashes, I'd be more than happy to accommodate. So yeah, that's all. All right, so far.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. That was, I could sit here for a long time and listen to these stories, both because they're so great to hear and just also in not wanting to let go. We were running Camelback one day, and on our way up, some dude is flying down past us. And we both watched this guy go, and you know, when you spend a lot of time together, you just become one mind. And we both watched this guy go. We just keep going. We get to the top, we're on our way down, and we're about halfway down the mountain. There's this guy sprawled out with medics, with everybody. And as we went past, I said, as he passed us, he said, I thought the same thing. It's like we both knew that that dude was going to eat it on his way down. You know, sweet, loving Fred did not suffer fools well. When I was listening to everybody share, what I kept thinking and hearing in my head again and again was generosity of spirit. And I think that's the quality that we all sensed from Fred. He was like this curmudgeon-y Zen master who makes you earn that first stage where you have to kind of, not that you're proving that you're someone worthy of him in his time. It's really more that he protected himself in his heart because he gave a lot. He really opened his heart very wide to people. And when he cared about you, and as everybody in this room shared, he really cared about you. So Fred had his walls and you had to climb over them. And when you did and you got there, you know, there was this infinite well of love. And when I think of the people in this world who consider me their best friend, there's two of them, and now one. But you listen to this room and look how many people consider Fred one of their best friends. And that says a lot about who he was and the capacity to love that he had. When we talk about his strength, whether it comes out on the mountain or it comes out in the boxing ring or wherever else, the strength of his that has always impressed me the most is when you understand his past and his family of origin. And this is nothing disparaging towards two, you know, people who did the best they could in a new country, different culture and everything else, but it was not an easy upbringing for him. sensitive child, you know, and most people in life take what was given to them and then they look to share that pain, to get it off of themselves. It's just kind of human nature. Hurt people hurt people. But you watch Fred with kids, you watch him with animals, you watch him with all of us. And you saw somebody who took whatever pain was ever delivered to him in his life, met it with the power and the strength to turn around and say, I never want to treat anybody that way. I never want anybody to be intimidated. I never want anyone to feel scared of me. Here's a guy that could scare people very easily if he wanted to. And yet every person who knew him felt an unbelievable safety in his presence. That to me was the greatest miracle of Fred and the greatest strength of all. He shielded everybody from whatever pain he ever received, and he made sure that they felt loved. And I remember this painting that I saw once, and I wish I had bought it, but it was, you know, this sort of like tribal African family kind of a thing, and it was the children, and it was the mother with their arms around the children, and then it was the man with his arms around the mother, his giant arms and this big broad back. And when I looked at it, I thought of Fred. I thought of the size of his back, the strength of the man, and the way he always used that strength to shield everybody. He could easily carry the weight of the world on his shoulders and do so lovingly and with grace if it meant protecting anyone. And I think that was the core of who he was. So it is a great loss for all of us, but there's not one of us in this room that has not been changed by the experience of knowing him. There's no doubt in my mind that I am a better man from it, that I treat people in this world differently because of my experience with Fred. And I imagine that's true for all of us. So even in 47 years, despite what he may have thought about himself or his career or whatever he struggled with, Fred changed the world. He did it with the people in this room, people who are not in this room. But he changed the world and he made it a better place. For that, brother, I love you. Wendy, thank you so much for caring for him through the toughest situation that almost any human being, I think, can go through. I was there for a portion of it, and talk about strength, that would be enough to break anyone. And you were there every step of the way. Except when he pushed you away to say stop, because he would be so uncomfortable being helped. It was amazing. But when he needed help and had no choice, you were right there. So thank you. It's a hard moment to end this. You know, of course, and it doesn't end. Fred lives in us forever, but I'm really glad that everybody had this opportunity to be here today. Thank you so much.